Any update on where Keenan's at?
Yeah, Daniel. Keenan will be out there at practice today. He's still day-to-day, but he'll be out there an individual, and I will be able to test it out and see how things are going.
Are you guys going to be any more cautious in terms of like what he's doing in individual, considering it sort of came up on him a little bit during the individual on that last Thursday?
Yeah, that's the plan, to not put him out there until he was ready to kind of ramp his way back up. So, he's been feeling better, and at least he'll be able to get out there in his helmet and go do some football stuff.
Is Trey going to practice this week?
Yeah, Trey will practice this week. He's not going to practice today. We're going to try and take advantage of today and tomorrow to try and get him back there, full speed for Friday's practice.
How much is what Mike's been able to do with Keenan Allen help overall?
Elliot, you can't minimize it because when you lose someone as special of a player as Keenan Allen, it's hard to replicate that type of production, especially when the coverage can tilt towards a player. So that's why it's been important for us to be able to run the football, stay balanced, make sure that we force the defenses to defend everybody. But we're a much better team when Mike touches the ball and when we can get to him a lot of different ways. And I think that's what we've been able to do. And he's just really playing well. He's improving, and he's just got to stay with it because that type of improvement leads to the results. And he and Justin have been able to really connect here and allow us to really score the ball and move the ball.
Not trying to nitpick or anything, but what's the difference between Mike at home and Mike away? Because it seems like at home he has like 3 catches for like 30 yards, and then away he has 350 yards. So is there a difference at the way they're playing him at home, or?
I don't know, Fernando. I can tell you that we're not trying to get them the ball any less in front of our fans. I know that. But sometimes that's just the way the receiver position is. Sometimes that's the way the game plans go. We're trying to spread the ball around and try to be an offense where everybody touches the ball. But I think that we've been really purposeful of getting Mike touches, particularly early in the game, and hopefully we can continue to do that.
Just looking at the numbers, you guys have been blitzing more this season, a little bit more than you were last season. How much of that is just game plan week to week? How much of that was an intentional adjustment in the offseason for you schematically? Just where does it sort of fall?
Yeah, Daniel, I think you're just trying to take advantage of your people. Do you have people that can rush? What does the rush do for other people? Do you have people that can cover? All those things kind of factor into whether you're going to do it or not. So there's a lot of factors in to that, but I feel like it's been effective for us this year. And again, each week has a life of its own, but I think that we have the personnel to be able to do that for sure.
Just looking at the splits, when you blitz, EPA per dropback, just looking specifically at that, you guys haven't been particularly good blitzing in terms of defending the pass based on that metric. I know you said you guys have been effective. Do you see sort of discrepancy there between when you're blitzing, when you're not, why there might be a discrepancy there, why you think it's effective despite the numbers that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the design when you're pressuring is, did you get the matchups that you were looking for, and then if you get beat, what happened with the football, and are you willing to live with that? And I think that outside of the touchdown against Kansas City, that's the ones that stands out to me, which was, we should have been in a different rotation. But, when you're designing pressure, it's, okay, are you getting the matchups you want in the rush and the coverage? Do you like those matchups? And it's kind of process over result. We're only 5 games into the season, but I think from our standpoint is, did the design of the pressure, was that intended? Did that work? Did we like our coverage matchups? And then, kind of work from there. But I do think that it's something that's going to help us moving forward.
Brandon, do you sit down with Jamari Sawyer this week and kind of break down Bradley Chubb, especially with how much experience you have with him?
He's got coaches that are going to be breaking those guys down, but every week I'm trying to insert myself where I can with players, specific matchups, and I love doing it on the offensive side of the ball, especially because I'm so familiar with a lot of the defensive players in the league and structures and stuff like that, and I really love that part about being a head coach. But Jamari is one of those students of the game. I think that's why you've seen him play well And then he's got really good coaches, Brendan Nugent and Sean Surratt. Those guys, to me, are as good as any tandem in the league. And then Joe Lombardi, obviously leading the way. So the other good thing for Jamari is that he also has another coach, Rashawn Slater, who's helping him out too, and Corey and Trey, who's played a lot, Storm. So what we try to do with guys like him that are new to the NFL is use everyone's experience to help them out.
How impressed have you been with the offensive line with opening up holes? Justin's only been sacked 5 times, 2 of them were just him sliding. So how impressed have you been with him?
Yeah, Fernando, it's just been a team effort. I think it just starts with that premise is that it takes a team effort to play like that. And it's not just the O-line, it's their coaches, it's the skill players around them, it's the protection plan, the run game plan. And I think that, things take time, and I think for us up front early in the season, it's just taken some time for those guys to play together, to get into rhythm together. But I think you've seen, over the last couple of weeks, us play really quality football, on the road. And that's also a factor, is that when you have a group that can go on the road and being able to play like that, we're excited. We got to keep improving.
How have you felt about the edge rushing opposite Khalil since Joey has gone down between Kyle, Chris, and Derek?
Yeah, I think that those guys are all combining to try and pick up the slack and, certainly to get the production. And I think they all can give us something that's going to give us an edge. And I think that when you take a look at Khalil, we don't want him to have to shoulder more and play more. And then as the season goes on, then he wears down. We want to use those 4 guys to really play, and that's what we're doing. I think in terms of rushing the passer, I thought in the Houston game, I thought that all 4 of those guys were outstanding. I thought last week in terms of just pass rush production, they didn't get the rush a lot in that game. It was just a bloody run game, and they didn't get very many opportunities, and that's what happens in a game like that. When you don't get the lead early, and then, the run game for them is working, you don't get very many chances to rush. And so, I think that group last week just had to play a tough, rugged game on the edge, and, hopefully we're going to earn more opportunities to rush early in the game.
With the JC, you mentioned after the game the other day that there have been moments he needs to be better. I've had a few days to sort of digest this. Have you picked out anything that he's not doing, or maybe he might be lagging a little bit?
No, I think that JC needs to get into his comfort zone, playing his technique and playing his game. I think sometimes it's hard for people to understand when you go to a new scheme. Like you've kind of made your name in a new scheme. You've been in the same system, the same location. You've been hearing something the same way for 4 years or 5 years. Then you transition. There's all this transition that happens. And I think that you've seen it with quarterbacks in the league. You see Tom Brady go through a new system. You see Aaron Rodgers go through a new system. And there's time that it takes to feel like yourself, the person that you're used to being. I think that's just normal. So what we're trying to do is get that transition sped up as quickly as we can. Like I mentioned to you, I think that 4 weeks being out, that's a factor, obviously. But it's our job as coaches and the players around him to get him back just playing his game. And I think that when he's playing his game, as you guys have seen throughout training camp and then, in a lot of stretches this year, he's the right guy to be coaching. So, we're excited to keep coaching him and, looking forward to seeing the best of him for sure.
Are you asking him to do anything he didn't do in New England, or is it vastly different in terms of once the ball's snapped, he's doing it, or is he pretty much doing what he does?
No, just like hearing a different language a little bit, just him getting, used to the way that we do things. But, we brought him here to do what he does best. We're not trying to change him, that's for sure. So, again, it's just him getting out there with his teammates, getting in rhythm, and playing his game.
What have you thought about Bryce Callahan 5 weeks in?
Fernando, I think Bryce is playing like he always has for me, which is just steady, productive. I think he's been a real bright spot for our defense. Been so consistent through 5 games, and he's been able to go toe to toe. And I think you saw that the stats, the metrics of his cover, ability, and when he's been in coverage, what the completion percentage has been and stuff like that. He's having an excellent year, but that's how he's played, and he's just brought that veteran presence. In today's NFL, when you play 5 DBs, your star is as important a position as there is. And so certainly glad to have him.
What have you seen out of the Broncos offense? Off to a bit of a slow start, it seems, here with the Russell Wilson era.
Yeah, Daniel, I see a team that easily could be 5-0. real easily. Could be 5-0. They've played a good schedule early on. That's what I see. I see an offense that has a lot of weapons. I think when you start with a quarterback, and he's a guy that I've had to face several times, and a guy that has as good of a resume as you're going to find. So much experience, has seen and played in so many big games. And he's going through that transition right now too, of going to a new team. But he's still the same player in terms of being dangerous every snap, and a guy that is as tough of a cover as you're going to go against. And at receiver, I mean, they've got an outstanding receiving core. Sutton, Judy, Hamler, those guys are really tough to cover. And then, the back, it's really unfortunate they lost the back, Javonte Williams, because he's an outstanding player. But Melvin Gordon is a lead back in this league, always has been. And then on the offensive line, they've had to make some adjustments, but they've got a good line. And so they're a team that I think that you see, when they through these first 5 games, they've moved the ball, and they're very dangerous because they have a lot of pieces that can get you explosions, that can score the ball for you, and they have our full attention, that's for sure.
Anything you can put your finger on in terms of maybe why it's been a slow start? Is that what you're talking about, just sort of having that discovery phase with, obviously Nate's new,
Yeah.
Russell, or is it more to it, like the red zone production's been pretty low? Like what can you put your finger on?
Well, I know this, where Nate Hackett came from. They were one of the top red zone scoring offenses in the world. When I was with the Rams, they were about ready to set a record in 2020. And Russell's has been as good of a red zone quarterback as anybody in pro football over his career. So I know that they have the stuff to do it. It's early in the season. And I think that, they're, making their improvements too. So they're very dangerous though. And, I think that that's what we look at on film is, hey, yeah, that it may not have happened yet, but it is all there to happen. And so we got to make sure that we're ready.
Brandon, on that note of slow starts, across the league we've seen scoring down, not necessarily for your team, but I think it's down from the last 2 years, one of the lowest marks it's been in a decade through 5 weeks. Are there any specific things you can point to as why that trend might be?
It could just be injuries early in the season, where I think people are working through a lot of different things. It seems to be that way. And maybe it's just because there's so much more media coverage, but it just seems like there's a lot of people in transition with their team. And I think when you factor in the preseason, people are playing less in the preseason, and then you get at the beginning of the season, and then you have some transition on your team, and it can be challenging, and that's why I talk about the discovery phase. I don't use that as a coaching, phrase to make it feel better. I just, I think it's descriptive of what is actually happening. So I think that's what you're seeing, and then, once these groups join up and they get their quote unquote identity, then you'll see it, I think, get back up because. The fact is the players are good enough. Sometimes you just got to play together more, and then the scoring will move up.
How have you felt about your guys' red zone offense?
Oh, Fernando, I think that last week, just start with last week, we had the 2 penalties that set us back. I thought that we were off to a good start down there, and then you can see what those penalties do. They get you into 3rd and long down there. But I thought we had a lot of good stuff up in the plan. I love the red area touchdown that Josh had running the football, and then the screen to Austin. You got to make sure that down there in the red area that you make them defend, the width of the field. And that's what we're trying to do, but we're trying to activate all those play calls, all those personnel groupings that can get the matchups down there. But, I think last week it certainly wasn't good enough for us. We were 2 for 5 down there. And if you score down there, you can see what it does to the game, and as you saw last week on defense, when you can get a red zone takeaway, what that does for your team. So it's an area of the field we practice a lot. I think, again, at the beginning of the season, you're still trying to figure it out. I know last year, if you guys go back to last year, we got off to a slower start in red zone, and then, we really heated up, and because, you figure it out, who you have, and then you go attack. So, I know that we have the chops to be as good as anybody in pro football offensively. And, I thought that last week, those penalties really hurt us last week.